Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, August 26, 2024. I'm Mayor Todd Kastenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes at 7 p.m. Warm welcome is extended to councillor, staff, delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether being physically in attendance in the council chamber and listable or being connected through web technologies. The room seems a little askew tonight because we're missing a few of our players, and CEO Snell is inexplicably sitting on that side of the room, which is highly unusual. I'm not sure what lies ahead, but hopefully nothing too traumatic. Let's begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the interruption or termination of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior and or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite you to quorum over the course of the coming meeting. As you can see, we're a little shy of the full complement tonight. I have regrets from Councillors Matt Richardson, Leanne Andreessen, and Sarah Blazek. Let's move to agenda item 5. This pertains to pecuniary interest. Members of council have rich lives with engagement in the community. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item at the council table. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest and in so doing avoid direct involvement in the consideration or voting on the item. I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already so declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point in the meeting should such interest be recognized. Colleagues, do any of you wish to make a declaration? I'm not seeing any from my colleagues, but I do have one. Item 11.1 on our agenda pertains to a request from the United Way Perth Huron. I am employed by that organization, so I will absent myself from that vote. And similarly, as a consequence of that, will absent myself from the confirmatory bylaw item on our agenda, which is item 17.1. Deputy Mayor Callum, we didn't talk ahead of time, but thank you for assisting on those occasions. All right, my role as chair prompts me to manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda. We can have some participating remotely by web conference. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conference technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, I will certainly advise. We do have some help with that. Let's now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a resolution for our consideration to approve the agenda as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Anstead. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And with 7 votes, that is carried. Thank you. Let's move next then to the so-called consent agenda, item 7 on our agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 9 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, anything here to extract or any corrections sought to the minutes? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and good evening, council, members of the public, and staff. Item 7.5, I think it's worthy of a conversation to support the Township of Perth East resolution regarding sustainable funding for small and rural municipal infrastructure.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to pull something from the consent agenda for discussion, consideration? All right, as per our usual process, then we'll take the extracted items first. Councillor Rothwell, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd. This is item 7.5 on the agenda. It's page 22 of our package. Again, just in the last week and a half, the Township of Perth East put forward a resolution regarding sustainable funding for small and rural municipal infrastructure, and I believe it's very appropriately put forward to express the concerns that all small and rural municipalities have, and I don't necessarily want to put a population figure on here, but whether we're small or large, frankly, doesn't matter. We're in the same boat as everyone else when it comes to rural infrastructure. And I would like this council to consider sending its support to this resolution, calling for both federal and provincial assistance in this matter, as well as the possibility of convening a working group to look for solutions across Ontario. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I'm going to assume that you're moving an endorsement and distribution of a letter to the usual suspects. Many of them are named in the bottom of this because this is a neighboring municipality. We might want to include Roma just to be on the safe side here as an additional named entity. Anyone wishing to second this? Councillor Johnston will be our seconder. Discussion, debate, anyone have any concerns? I think this is fairly consistent with the big problem, right? As most of us are aware, AMO has called for a social and economic prosperity review that includes the province and municipalities working together. This is sort of, to me, one slice of that. I think it adds the voice of that slice to that, so it makes a lot of sense to me to proceed. Anyone else with comments? All right, clerk, you ready for the vote? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you for that, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else last chance to do a poll here for the consent agenda before we consider the main resolution? All right, seeing any, so the resolution as follows: that consent items 7.1 to 7.9 be received for information, and the minutes of the August 12th, 2024 regular council meeting and the August 14th, 2024 special council meeting be adopted. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Burnham, thank you. Councillor Duncan, you'll be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. All right, at this time we'll move to agenda item number 8. Our agenda indicates that we will hold 3 public meetings, 1 pertaining to a drain and 2 to land planning matters. For the purpose of executing these public meetings, I'm going to use my discretion as head of council to announce a recess in council that will last the duration of the public meeting. And I forgot to bring out the hammer, but we are out of regular council at this moment. Let's turn now to each of these public meetings. The first is a consideration of a report for the Marks Municipal Drain as item 8.1 on our agenda. I'm going to welcome any assessed landowners who are in attendance to hear the report on this drain. At this time, I'll call on Matt Ash with GEI Consultants to present the report pertaining to this project. Mr. Ash, welcome to our council meeting. And just you may need to hit the microphone button.
Got it. Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Good evening, Council. Yes, tonight we're here to consider the report for the Marks Municipal Drain. This is a relatively small drain system located immediately west of Trowbridge in the former township of Elma. A request for agreement was submitted by Mr. Doug Green last October to this council, who subsequently appointed us to investigate this system. We held the standard on-site meeting in December of last year, and there was 2 out of the grand total of 3 landowners attended that. There is only 4 properties in this drainage system. As I mentioned, it's fairly small, about 50 hectares, only 125 acres roughly. The drain dates back to the early 1940s or even into the 20s. Currently consists of a mixture of 12-inch, 10-inch, 8-inch, 6-inch field tile. It's certainly undersized by today's standards. So we are proposing to improve this drainage system by the installation of 600 millimeter tile on the bottom end and 450 millimeter tile extending on the upper end through to the lands of closer to Trowbridge there. The total estimated cost of this project is $147,000, and it's split between primarily 3 properties in the usual manner. There is no road crossing on this property, so unusually the municipality gets off scot-free. It is entirely agricultural, which is good for the landowners, so a grant will apply to all of the costs. And of course, the usual rights of appeal apply as per any drainage project. I do believe there is one landowner here, Mr. Green himself. So as a small system, I'll keep it short and sweet tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ash. I will turn to those who have assembled for the purpose of this public meeting and offer them the opportunity at this hour to ask any questions of the consultant with regards to this project. Does anyone in attendance wish to ask questions or make comments on this proposal? I saw a hand there. Please come forward. If you would introduce yourself, your name, and where you reside so that we have some context. And I believe there's a sign-up sheet at the back that should be signed before you leave just so that we have official record. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you. Matthew Fisher, town of North Perth. My question is, we would like a better understanding of how the shared costs are calculated for the Marks drain, and if it is solely based on the acreage affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Ash, would you like to come forward and address that?
Yes, and I actually met with Matt's father, Ray, a while back about this same issue. And I mean, drainage assessments are not entirely straightforward. Certainly, acreage is one of the components, no question. But it's also based on where you are located on the drainage system. So those who are further upstream, of course, they use more of the system. So they assume a little bit more of the cost assessment than those would at the bottom end. In this particular case, that's really the only two factors that come into play.
Is that a standard kind of calculation? Like there's a guide or book that you use to figure out how that works, Mr. Ash?
Yeah, there's a guide that was published by Omafra quite a few years ago. It's called the Todgham Method after an old drainage engineer. And that is the standard guide that is used, but it's not an exact science, so I must certainly be honest with that. We also look at overall fairness, but it comes down to the same argument. In one person's eyes, fairness is not the same as in another person's eyes.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments at this point from those who assembled for the purpose of this public meeting? Okay, I'm not seeing any indication of that. Colleagues, opportunity for you to ask questions or make comments on this proposition. Anyone wishing to avail themselves of that opportunity? All right, I'm not seeing any. I want to just check on our assumptions here. Is there anyone in attendance who has significant concerns about this report? Okay, so then I'm allowed to say what I'm about to say, which is that at this hour we can certainly consider this public meeting brought to a close and adjourned at this point. All right. Now we're going to do two land planning meetings. First is item 8.2. This is a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with Z-09-2024, an application for zoning bylaw amendment by Franciscus Van Newland for property described as Lot 17, Concession 17, Elma Ward in the municipality of North Perth, known municipally as 5734, line 57. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make a verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. And does a sign-in sheet also work for that, Clerk Carter? They can sign up at the back. Right. All right. So at this time, I'm going to call for a summary of the application. This will be offered by Mr. Nathan Garland, a planner for the County of Perth who works on North Perth files. He's a familiar face. Welcome again, Mr. Garland.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kiesenberg, members of North Perth Council. For Council's information, they may recognize this file from B1724. This was a surplus farm severance that was approved 7 months ago. So this is the corresponding zoning bylaw amendment that's required as part of the conditions just to address the zoning matter. So as mentioned, this is for Z09, as owner and applicant is Franciscus Van Newland. And then the subject property is just located northeast of Moncton there along highway or along line 57, road 57. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Just an outline of the subject severance. So the subject property is approximately 1.31 acres in size. It contains a house and a small garage at the back. The retained lands are all agriculturally based, and it is 98.8 acres, or approximately 40 hectares in size.
The subject rezoning that we're requesting today or talking about that has been applied for as a condition of the severance application. The surplus farm severance is required to be rezoned to prohibit a house from going on the agricultural lands, and vice versa to prohibit a agricultural land used on the severed land for the house. So just an outline of the yellow area that is prohibit the future agricultural operation, and then the retained lands would prohibit a house to take place there. No concerns or comments have been expressed from any of the neighbors. The owner owns an additional farmland just down the road along line 57. Servicing is to remain private, so there are no public servicing required, and it is open municipal access. And then it was previously a rental house, as noted in the severance discussion. Just a picture of the subject house. It is a red brick house there on the property, so it has been habited previously. That was also one of the requirements. Policy summary, as mentioned, it does support it in the PPS. The PPS does support agricultural surplus farm severances, as well as the County of Perth official plan. And as part of that official planning requirement and conditions listed, this rezoning application is required. So staff are supportive of the request that has been submitted. I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. I'm going to turn to both you and to the clerk to test our assumptions about provision of notice of this public meeting.
Yes, provision and notice was provided as per the requirements of the Planning Act.
Okay. Clerk Carter, anything different or notable?
I confirm notices were circulated on August 6th, 2024, and notice was posted on our website and the subject property on the same day.
Okay, thank you. Can you publicly confirm that your current circumstances with regards to comments, reports, and correspondence received?
Yes, I would like to confirm that no additional comments or concerns have been expressed by any of the neighbors or agencies or parties.
Thank you. Clerk Carter, anything that we've received?
No additional correspondence.
Thank you. All right. The opportunity is now available to those who have assembled for the purpose of this public meeting to make comments or ask questions. Let's do this in a reasonable order. First, we'll call on those who are in favor of this application other than the applicant. You are now invited to come forward and present your case. Anyone wishing to avail themselves of that opportunity? I am not seeing anyone. Next, again, is those who are opposed to this application may step forward and present their arguments. Anyone wishing to take advantage of that opportunity? I am not seeing anyone. The applicant or the applicant's agent is welcome to step forward at this point and make their case if they wish. Does anyone wish to take advantage of that opportunity? We're not seeing anyone. It's a shy night, apparently. And colleagues, this is your opportunity to ask questions if you have them or make comments on this application in the public session. Anyone wishing to do that? I'm not seeing any indication of that. So, statutory notice as follows. Notice of decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we can adjourn that public meeting. All right, my pleasure to call to order another public meeting for the purposes of Planning Act considerations. I welcome those who are attending a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with Z07-2024, an application for zoning bylaw amendment by Patterson Planning on behalf of Franciscus and Yelika Slice for property described as Lot 16, Concession 2, Elma Ward in the municipality of North Perth, 7887 Road 164. I knew I should have asked Councillor Nordham how to pronounce that before the meeting started. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by Council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal Council's decision on this matter must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to Council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email or telephone or sign up at the back on the register, giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, it looks like we're calling on Mr. Garland once again. Mr. Garland, the floor is yours.
Thank you again, Mayor Kasenberg, members of North Perth Council. I'm here to present on Z07 2024. The owners are Francis and Angelica Sluice, and the applicant is Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Scott Patterson. The property is just located south of Listowel along Road 164, Highway 23. And I'm going to go over it. Staff are supportive of the application as presented, so we're just going to address some of the details of the specific that's been applied for. So the request is for a zoning bylaw amendment, and additionally, I will note further on in the council agenda package, there's also a corresponding severance application. So the two are linked and corresponding to each other. They have requested the zoning bylaw amendment be brought forward this time, and we like that idea because it joins the two applications for council's consideration to consider them concurrently. So the requested land to be severed and then subsequently rezoned is approximately 2.23 hectares in size. It does contain the greenhouse operation, parking, and some additional outspace and storage. The retained lands are primarily agricultural with an existing single-family house on the property and some outbuildings. It's approximately 35.5 hectares in size, and it fronts on both the main road and the side road. Slide, please. Just an outline of the subject land. So the yellow area is proposed to be an ACM-25, so an agricultural special commercial industrial zone. Staff are suggesting that just to address the corresponding association of the greenhouse operation, where some plants are grown both in the greenhouse and brought in from off-site. So that addresses the ACM requirement as opposed to just a straightforward agricultural requirement, which would be permitted as of right. And then the retained agricultural lands. Staff are currently that property is zoned A-35, the entire property. So we're just suggesting move back to an agricultural zone. That way it just addresses general agricultural. So we're removing that greenhouse provision or allowance from the entire property and just restricting it to just the greenhouse area. No concerns or comments have been expressed by any members of the public and or agencies. Servicing is to remain private through that area, so they will be required to maintain a well and septic on the properties. Just for council's considerations and notes, part of that area is appropriated for the employment lands as part of the draft Perth County official plan. So in the future, there could be some industrial commercial operations moving into that area. As I noted, it's considered for employment. And then just the special ACM, they are requesting a reduction in the parking just to recognize what's there now. They don't have quite, just based on the land side, they're required to provide upwards of over 100 lots. So they are requesting a reduction in the parking to about 80, as well as storage in the front yard and the consideration for accessory structure lot coverage to be over the 10%. We've actually considered that to be a mirror image and just combine the two with accessory and the main structure. A couple pictures of the subject property. So these are just some images from Highway 23, looking kind of directly west or directly east, and then also looking south on the main entrance location. And then a picture looking south from line 84 of the corn there, and then you can see the greenhouse operation back. So that area in the front will remain as agricultural land. So just the greenhouse area itself will be ACM use. So that corn area in the front will still be, or the crop area in the front will still remain as A. And then just a picture from Highway 23 again, looking north towards the east. For council's consideration, the planning discussion. So as consideration, we are considering the rezoning application. The PPS does support lot creation for agriculturally related uses, so this can fit within that. The OMAFRA guideline as well too considers and supports this for agricultural related use. Perth County official plan talks about agricultural related commercial and industrial uses. Spelling typo there, apologies on that. For consideration and severance. There was an MDS calculation that was done just for the council's consideration. None of the MDS circle, so that's just an outline image, none of the MDS circle actually encroached on any of the greenhouse area. It was just over top of the storage and parking location, so it did not impact any of the consideration there. And then just as a note, we will bring this back for council's consideration for the severance application further on in the agenda tonight. And as mentioned, staff are supportive of the application that is being presented, and we're happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garland. I've taken note of your inputs with regards to correspondence and reports, so I'm just going to check with the clerk to see if we've received anything other than what Mr. Garland and the county have received on this file.
No additional correspondence received.
Thank you. And with regards to notice of public meeting, it was duly.
It was provided as per the Planning Act, I believe, July 10th, 19th.
Notice of public meeting was circulated August 6th.
August 6th. Okay, thank you. All right, this is the opportunity then for those who've attended for this consideration by council in public meeting to offer comments. First, we'll call on those who are in favor of the application other than the applicant. Are there any who wish to avail themselves of the opportunity to speak? I'm not seeing any, so let's have a look for those who are opposed. Any opposed to this application who would like to step forward and speak? I'm not seeing any indication of that. Does the applicant or the applicant's agent wish to step forward to speak? I see Mr. Patterson is with us and approaching the podium. So, Mr. Patterson, welcome. Identify yourself, please.
Good evening, Council. Scott Patterson from Patterson Planning Consultants here today on behalf of the property owner. I have a brief presentation for you this evening.
Thank you.
So we're here tonight to talk about the Sluice property, which is located just south of Listowel. It's a 93.5 acre property. Currently contains the Sluice personal residence as well as Listowel greenhouses, and it's outlined in red in the image before you. As Mr. Garland had noted, the property is currently zoned A36 and NRE2. And in 2002, a site-specific zoning was applied to the entire property, other than the green area, the NRE2. The A36 zone was put in place to recognize the greenhouse operation at that time. And that's just a copy of the site-specific zoning. You can see the commercial greenhouses as a permitted use. Basically, the A36 zoning is applicable to the vast majority of the property. It would essentially allow the greenhouse operation to be developed, basically conducted anywhere outside of the NRE2 zoned area. This has benefited Listowel greenhouses. They have not been geographically constrained and have been able to expand the business over time since they first went on the site. The intent of the zoning bylaw is to clean up the zoning, basically to reflect the area of the greenhouses that exist today and apply a site-specific ACM 25 zoning. This also supports a consent application with severance to enable the greenhouse business operations to be on a separately comparable parcel. So on the image before you, the green is the area will not be changing. That area will remain NRE2. The area outlined in red is the agricultural portion of the property that will remain or be converted to A, So that will just have the plain agricultural zone. And the area in gray, being roughly 5.5 acres, is the greenhouse operation that will receive the ACM 25 zone. The ACM 25 zone is site-specific. It would limit the range of uses to reflect the greenhouse operation, site-specific in the way that it would not allow all of the ACM uses that would typically be allowed. It would require a maximum parking amount of 80 spaces. Currently, 247 parking spaces are required because all of the accessory buildings that support the greenhouses also count towards parking. So I've tried to rein that back into what exists on site today and also account for actually just the main building and not the storage buildings or the hoop structures that grow the actual product. It would allow for outdoor storage to be within 3 meters of the front lot line. That is the bulk storage areas that you see today when you drive by the site. So those would be permitted by the zoning. And it would remove the maximum size cap on accessory buildings. Again, the zoning today for accessory buildings only allows a 10% maximum. The nature of the greenhouse business requires much more than that, so the new zoning would actually just reflect that and allow the operations the way they are today. As Mr. Garland had noted, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms with Publication 851, which is the OMAFRA guidelines. It conforms to the County of Perth official plan. I'm here tonight to ask Council to support the zoning bylaw amendment in principle and endorse the consent application, which follows later on tonight on the agenda. And then when this comes back, I would ask Council to adopt the zoning bylaw at a future Council meeting. I am noted to be a delegation, I think, for the consent application as well, but I would just like to note that I'm in support of that. I have no further presentation. I've reviewed the conditions. Everything was acceptable to myself and the clients. So if there's any questions from Council, I'll be happy to answer them at this time.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Colleagues, any questions that you'd like to ask on this file? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks for the presentation. Just a question through to Mr. Patterson. When we look at the air photo that shows the area for the greenhouse, I noticed that there's an area just to the east of that that looks as though there's some machinery or equipment and so on. Is that required for the business as well? It's on the air photo that was part of the presentation there, just to east of the greenhouse site there. And there's a grassed area. It looks like a bit of a laneway. It looks like a series of machinery equipment. Is that required at all for the greenhouse, or is that just all required for the farm? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Todd. A survey was conducted of the property to look at the greenhouse area, to pick up the buildings and all the associated features. Mr. Sleuth reviewed that, and we determined the severance boundary to be the 5.5 acres. Any area that's not included naturally within the severance limits isn't required for the greenhouse operation. That would be part of the agricultural operation and revert back to agricultural if it isn't today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any further questions? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you. I think my question is likely to Nathan Scott. So it's about, you talked about the Perth County official plan, that the areas around this will be employment. Are we going to look at any compatibility issues with the greenhouse in the future?
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, in response to Councilor Johnson's question, compatibility always is looked at as part of an operation. It is an industrial commercial component still, so it would have a light and load. It's not a sensitive use like a nursing home or a house, or there's no overnight accommodation. So definitely a lighter set of things and considerations. So probably not a compatibility so much, more just buffering and setbacks and some potential some viewscaping, etc. So.
All right. Anyone else with questions before we move to close here? All right. Notice that the decision of Council pertaining to this application will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we will adjourn this public meeting. Now, I declare the recess period over, and we are back as a regular council meeting in properly constituted session. We have some resolutions to consider relating to the public meetings, and I think we'll tackle those now. If that's the clerk's desire, we'll tackle them now. All right. So I have resolutions for 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3, and let's go with 8.1. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth accepts the Marks Municipal Drain Report dated July 18th, 2024, prepared by GEI Consultants Limited. Can I call for mover? Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Nordum. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Councillor Anstett records a manual in favor vote. And we have all voted. That is carried. Next resolution, per 8.1, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth will hold the Court of Revision for the Marks Municipal Drain on October 7th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Can I call for mover on this one? Councillor Johnson is gently nodding his head, knowing he has to be there. A seconder, Councillor Duncan, thank you. Any discussion or debate on that? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. For item 8.2, as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the report dated August 26, 2024, titled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number Z09-2024, affecting lands described as Lot 17, Concession 17, Elma Ward, North Perth, 5734, Perth Line 57, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves zoning bylaw amendment Z09-2024 affecting lands described as Lot 17, Concession 17, Elma Ward, North Perth, 5734, Perth Line 57, to rezone the lands from agricultural zone A to special agricultural zone A-1 for the severed lands and special agriculture zone A-62 for the retained lands. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstead, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate on that? And the clerk has raised her hand.
Can we confirm with Planner Garland what the municipal address is of that?
Sure. Before we jump to the vote, let's have a confirmation of the address.
One moment here. I have it as through the workshop. I have it as 5930 line 57.
We have a correction. I realize I didn't put the microphone on, so we do have a different address that we will include in the resolution. Colleagues, do you want me to read the resolution again, or are you okay with the address change? Councillor Rothwell.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to confirm it's simply line 57, not Perth line 57. I think I heard you say Perth line 57. It's just
says-
line 57.
It says Perth 957 in the resolution, striking the words Perth as well. Sorry to see them go. All right. 5930 line 57. That's the municipal address. All right, everyone on board with what we're doing here? Thank you. Where are we with this? Do we have this duly moved and seconded? We do. So let's move this forward. Let's have that vote. Easy to distract me. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, we have one more resolution under 8.3. This is the approves in principle resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a report dated August 26, 2024, titled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number Z07-2024, affecting lands described as Lot 16, Concession 2, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 7877 Perth Road 164. And that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves in principle zoning bylaw amendment Z07-2024, affecting lands described as Lot 16, Concession 2, Elma Ward, 7877 Perth Road 164, to rezone the lands from Special Agriculture Zone A-36 to Special Agricultural Commercial Manufacturing Zone ACM-25 and Agriculture A. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothman, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordham. Any discussion or debate on this one? Councillor Rothman.
Just one correction regarding the municipal address again. So it's just Road 164, not Perth Road 164. It's a provincial highway, so it's only Road 164. Thank you.
I was wondering about that. All right. Okay. Clerk has that cleaned up. All right. Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Debate? Let's have a vote. And that is carried. And I'm starting to think that maybe the clerk is optimistic that we're uploading a whole bunch of roads to Perth County. That's what I'm starting to think. So, all right. Thank you for that, colleagues. So let's move forward then. We have opportunity now to consider delegations from those with interest in your council's business or authority. I'll remind delegations that in accordance with the council's procedure bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes per delegation is permitted, and that includes both presentation time and providing an opportunity for councilors to ask questions. A delegation is to present on the topic declared on the submitted request for delegation forms, and deviations from the topic are generally not acceptable to the chair or to this council. Decorum is always requested and required. Furthermore, I request that we maintain an atmosphere of respect and courtesy. I remind those delegating that they should not use the names of those who have not consented to such use. First, we have Mr. Scott Patterson of Patterson Planning Consultants, who wishes to serve as a delegation related to item 9.2.2 on tonight's agenda. Mr. Patterson, no. Oh, we have him down as a delegate. And we're not going to hear from him. He's said his thing. All right. Then next, unless you wish to approach, you're welcome to.
No, good evening, Council. Just as part of my last presentation, my delegation is part of the consent topic on this evening. Just here in full support of that.
Okay.
And that was covered in my presentation. So if there's any questions about the consent aspect, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. Anyone have questions regarding the consent for Mr. Patterson? All right, thanks. Thank you. Next, we're going to hear remotely from Ms. Caroline Baker of Baker Planning Group, who wishes to serve as a delegation related to item 9.2.3 on tonight's agenda. We'll ask the clerk to cue this up for us and invite Ms. Baker to take the floor when we see her. I see her. Now let's hear you. Ms. Baker, welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of Council. Can you hear me all right?
We certainly can.
Perfect. Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to delegate this evening. I'll try to be prompt and thorough in the presentation. I'm Caroline Baker from Baker Planning Group. I'm representing the owner and applicant in this consent application, which is referred to as B24-24 for Mrs. Bray and Trident Properties. If you don't mind going to the next slide. As Council will recall, there were two official plan amendment applications on the subject property at 6175 line 86, which is on the west side of the settlement area of Listowel. Those previous official plan amendment applications brought the majority of the subject property into the settlement area and the boundaries of the Listowel Ward official plan, with the corresponding land use designations, including residential and commercial. Next slide. This is just a highlight of the approvals received to date to facilitate the future residential development. On the left, you'll see the County of Perth official plan amendment, and on the right was the Listowel Ward official plan amendment. What I would note in the County of Perth official plan on the left is the most northwesterly component or portion of the site was to be retained as agricultural land and agricultural use, and was therefore not brought into the settlement area and designated agricultural. Next slide. The purpose of the consent application before you this evening is to sever the retained agricultural lands that were contemplated in the official plan amendment applications. Generally, the land to be severed fronts on line 86, is approximately 5.22 hectares in size. The remaining retained lands will comprise the future development lands. For your reference, draft plan of subdivision and rezoning have been filed for the larger residential development that would be brought back forward at a later date with a staff report to North Perth Council. This evening is just to address the consent of that agricultural piece that was recognized in the official plan as an undersized agricultural lot. Certainly, we have reviewed staff's report recommending approval and are in agreement with the consent conditions as listed in the staff report. Certainly here to answer any questions. I know this is a multi-phase, multi-step approvals in terms of the redevelopment, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. Colleagues, questions or first comments on this one? Anyone have questions, comments? Okay, not seeing any. Ms. Baker, this is a very large parcel. 5 hectares, it's more than 10 acres. Is that feasible, reasonable in this context, given our usual approach to residential severances in agricultural areas?
Through His Worship, thank you for the question. You are correct in typical surplus farm severances. The intent is the severed farmhouse is to be as small as possible to the driveway, the house, the well, septic, necessary functions, as you've seen in other applications this evening. This application is not considered a surplus farm severance. The agricultural land is remnant to the larger development piece and was designated for a particular size through the official plan amendment, and this is carrying forward that approval. The one thing I would note is the ultimate property retained by the Brays for the farm parcel will be slightly smaller. At this time, their property is retaining land, as you'll see in the sketch. You can't see my pointer, where it says 85.8 meters on line 86 to retain legal frontage. When the residential and commercial development proceeds, the northern portion of their piece will become commercial development. So at the end of the day, when all the planning approvals are complete, if they are approved, the Brays retained farm piece is around 4 hectares. And as noted, that was the size delineated in the official plan amendment.
Okay, it seems atypically large still to me, but I just wanted to check in with that. Mr. Garland, do you have any comments on this that might bear?
Not a lot of additional comments to add. Typically, you do see the entire property move in. It's probably a function of phasing at this point in time because this is slated for residential, even in the draft official plan that's been moving forward. So eventually, that agricultural piece will move towards the residential side of things. I think it comes down to just the function of timing and using some servicing as well as the overall framework for justification at the time that the official plan was considered. So just a bit of a gap, I guess, in the old work that was done with the new work that's being done currently to bring the new official plan up to date.
Okay. Anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate the comments for Caroline as well as Nathan. My comments will be more specific once we hear the full report later on our agenda, because it's to this very point in terms of the fact that the new draft official plan has this not in agriculture but rather residential, and I want to make sure that in fact we are looking forward as opposed to behind for the retained lot for Bray here. So just to make sure that in fact as was said here that we are going to be looking at residential development on the balance of this parcel at some point, that in fact that happens. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Anyone else with questions or comments for the delegate? All right. Thank you, Ms. Baker, for attending tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item 9 on our agenda. First up, 2 items from the Corporate Services Department. As item 9.1.1, Council again sees reports and action recommendations related to updating our development charges platform in the municipality. An imminent expiry date of September 1st, 2024 on the current bylaw prompts a recommendation for some actions tonight. I'm going to call first on Ashton Romany, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, to provide us with an overview of actions that are proposed at this time. Mr. Romany has at his disposal Andrew Mirabella from Hemson Consulting, who's been our consultant on this project. And it is strongly recommended, colleagues, that if you have questions about the technical aspects of this report, that you ask them during this session of the agenda, because Mr. Mirabella is with us and can answer those questions if needed. And so I will turn it over with discretion. If you want to call Mr. Mirabella to Mr. Romany, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaisenberg, and good evening, members of council. So before you meet, we have the development charges bylaws for the municipal wide and the area specific, or they're known as the Northeast Master Plan area. A public meeting was held on July 8th, and staff received preliminary feedback from the development community and council. Since then, staff and the consultant hosted a roundtable discussion with local developers on July 24th. Comments received during this meeting were relatively consistent with those heard during the public meeting, which primarily surrounded around the equity of the Northeast Master Plan charges and also the Parks and Recreation charges in the municipal-wide study. So subsequent to the roundtable, staff did receive one submission on August 12th surrounding the municipal-wide and area-specific development charges study. Staff and the consultant did meet the developer and their consultant on August 19th, and indicate the response for their submission is forthcoming. The memo submitted is attached to the report for your information. So as mentioned, one of the key comments received surrounding the recreation charge was with regards to Steve Kerr Complex. In efforts to better align with the project timeframe, a post-period allocation was made to the project, thereby reducing the charge by around $490. As well, not referenced in the report, a review to the childcare allocation was also made to shift some of the costs into the post-period timeline, which reduced around $51. So coupling together these changes reduced the draft rate to $32,068, or 36.5% increase, where before it was $32,609, or 38.8. The next DC study will pick up the remainder of those costs that were shifted into the post-period time frame. So as presented during the public meeting, the proposed bylaw now includes a mandatory index to index the development charges that is permissible under the Act. Annual indexing, once again, is a common practice that allows the rates to reflect inflationary increases to the activities over the bylaw's life. As well, the bylaw now excludes, proposes an exclusion to the previously included entry-level residential unit discount program. This program was in place to promote more affordable developments within the municipality. However, since 2021, only 4 permits met the criteria of the program. Since then, as well, the province has introduced 100% exemption on development charges should the units meet the affordability criteria established by the province. Given this, and also the introduction of the Community Improvement Plan, staff felt that the CIP would be a more appropriate avenue to implement the additional DC rebate programs that align with the attainability beyond what's legislated currently. It is also important to note that the program, as written, currently has no cap under the DC bylaw, but introducing it under the CIP allows for more formalized tools to contain the funding envelope within the program. For non-residential exemptions, the bylaw introduces that municipal-wide charges now be applicable for non-residential development. Staff and the consultant believe that these charges would not adversely impact growth and would allow to collect DC revenues for the growth-related pressures that result from non-residential growth. Keep note that non-residential charges do not include soft services such as library, childcare, and recreation charges. Agricultural and farm activities are still exempt under the bylaw. So with the consultations with the development committee tonight, the bylaw tonight also propose a phase-in period of the municipal-wide charges, whereby the rates are currently proposed to be extended to the end of the year and phased in over 2 years, with the first phase-in being introduced at 50% as of January 1st, 2025, and the final 50% of January 2026. So during this time frame, staff will still seek to commence indexing the rates effective January 2025 in accordance with the bylaw. And staff believe that this proposal allows time for the developers and builders to adequately plan for the new rates being proposed. It's important to know that during the phasing period, the municipality must bridge the gap in revenue loss collected during these years from non-DC funded sources. Staff will assess during the budget process on how to best address this funding gap. For the area-specific charge rates, as referenced in the public meeting, developer expressed concern on the proportion of the existing infrastructure costs. Staff and the consultants have continued dialogue with the developer and expressed a commitment to continue these charges. So due to development, due to the development of the potential area, staff are proposing that these rates be brought into full force as of today, the NEMP rates. And I do apologize that there's a typo in the report. I did indicate September 1st, but the bylaws do reference August 26th. The importance of these rates coming into effect immediately ensure that the municipality begins to recover the costs for properties benefiting from this infrastructure. One of the resolutions in the report does direct staff to continue to work with the developer, and it is likely that there will be a revised or new bylaw brought forward in the coming months. So given this, tonight we have the 3 bylaws. The first extending the municipal-wide bylaws expiry deadline to ensure that rates are carried to the end of the year, and as well amends the existing bylaw to remove the NEMP rates as it's coupled within the same bylaw. As the second bylaw introduces to bring the NEMP rates on its own, and the final being the municipal-wide that's going to be introduced on January 1st, 2025. So lastly, development charges have a 10-year expiry, but with the historical growth that the municipality has experienced and, and to remain prudent, we seek to update the plan within 5 years to ensure that the DC rates will remain consistent with the evolving landscape. So attached to the report are also the excerpts from the development charges bylaw for information, and furthermore, the corresponding bylaws are included in the budget or included in the agenda package tonight. So I wanted to thank the management team and the consultants for their collaborative efforts on this project and the feedback from both council and the development community through this collaborative process. So thank you, and myself, staff, and the consultants are here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Romani. Colleagues, questions or first comments? Councillor Nordum.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Just confirming, you said we're waiving the development charges related to Steve Kerr Phase 2?
Through your Mayor Kasenberg, so there is a post-period adjustment, so not the entire costs of Phase 2 are included within the planning horizon of the DC. There's a portion of that project that's allocated outside of that planning horizon, so not the entire project, just a portion.
Okay, yep, thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else with questions or first comments on this? I think there's been a certain amount of startle in the community, certainly at the scope of the increase that have been proposed across both the community-wide and the NEMP area charges. And you know, in the times that we're in, where we're calling for affordable and attainable housing, it does add cost to the housing prospects that this community has. Nevertheless, I think we're in that weird situation where we really can't let the taxpayers pay for it without careful consideration. And so, you know, I think the general philosophy of this council, if I might say so, is that growth should pay for growth. And we're continuing to some degree with that plan, with provisions to sort of target affordability and attainability through our community improvement plan for that purpose. So to me, while I know, having been at AMO a week and a half ago and hearing comments from provincial ministers about their disdain of development charge increases, I think the reality is that growth does need to continue to pay for growth, and this council is doing what it can to target affordability through other mechanisms that allow us to deal in some degree with DCs and other incentives. And so I guess that's my approach to justifying the fact that we're going to make a change here potentially that is substantial and that the community is not all that wild about. Nevertheless, it appears to be necessary and it's certainly well established in terms of justification. Now, with me having said that, anyone else want to weigh in? Councillor Rothman.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I appreciate your comments, and Councillor Nordum as well. Thanks very much for your presentation. The question I have is, there were some questions that the developers consultant asked, and I don't believe I heard the response. There was a concern on page 104 of our agenda package about the benefits for municipal, post-period benefits for municipal-wide road projects, and specifically I think that was dealing with our rerouting of our roads for a truck bypass and so on. Did we actually answer their question about the cost piece for that? Because it is quite a substantial piece. Thank you.
So through the mayor, we did receive the correspondence, and we were working through the questions, and we will be responding formally, but generally we already did allocate a share post period for the truck bypass, as well as a benefit to existing shares. So we feel that we made accommodation in the background study for that specific project as it is.
Thanks very much. I just want to make sure that if we hadn't answered it already, if we are going to answer it, that's fine, just as long as it's allocated in our drafts here. So on that basis, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Anyone else at this point? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I have a nice long resolution to read for our consideration. as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the development charges bylaws report for information purposes, and the Council expresses its intent that growth-related costs identified in the development charges background study as post-period benefits shall be paid for subsequently by development charges or other similar charges. And that Council states that it has given notice in accordance with Section 12 of the Development Charges Act 1997 of its intention to pass a bylaw under Section 2 of the Act. And that Council approves the development charges background studies dated May 27, 2024 and June 13, 2024, and those updated rate tables included in this report. And that Council states that it held a public meeting to consider the enactment of the development charges bylaw in accordance with Section 12 of the Development Charges Act 1997. And that Council states it heard all persons who applied to be heard and received written submissions, whether in objection to or in support of the development charges proposed at the public meeting. And that Council has determined that no further public meetings are required under Section 12, subsection 3 of the Development Charges Act 1997, and that the staff be directed to continue to work with the consultant developers and engineers to further review the Northeast Master Plan area specific development charge and update the ASDC background study and associated bylaw as required, and that staff be directed to review and potentially conduct a municipal-wide development charges study update within 5 years if deemed necessary. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Anstead. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on that? Councillor Roth.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. I'll be voting in favor of the motion, but I'm just wondering through staff if you could just remind Council in terms of the appeal period, and if we do receive an appeal, where that appeal would go. Thank you.
Through the mayor, the appeal period is 40 days following the passage of the bylaw, and the appeal goes to the OLT. Noting that generally with municipal with development charges, there is still a process to discuss with the appellant to work through any issues or concerns. And particularly, we are, as mentioned in the staff report, committed to maintain those discussions on the NEMP to work through some of the issues that they've identified, which kind of have occurred since the background study preparation and the passage of the bylaws, and that's partly the commitment to do that.
Thank you. Hopefully on that basis, we'll be able to resolve any additional questions or concerns. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions or comments at this point? All right, the motion has been duly moved and seconded. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you to the team. It's been an amazing amount of work that you have done, and we're appreciative for that. And we know that it will continue. Thank you. All right, as item 9.1.2, staff have brought forward our water and wastewater study report and have made recommendations relying on said report related to water and wastewater management plans, including future pricing approaches. Amongst the understandings is the assertion that with the parameters in the plan, if adopted, our water and wastewater systems are financially viable. I'll again call on Mr. Romani, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, to provide us with an overview of actions that are proposed at this time. Mr. Romani.
Thank you, Heisenberg. So in accordance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, it requires that owners of the water distribution system be licensed by the province of Ontario. So under Section 30 of this Act, it outlines that financial plans shall be prepared for the drinking water distribution systems, covering a period of at least 6 years, and further that these plans shall outline the system's financial sustainability. So as the application deadline is in September, before each night you have the water and wastewater financial plans to meet this requirement. The last plan was completed in 2017. To support this initiative, staff engaged Henson Consulting to prepare these plans. Furthermore, given the municipality's rate study was last performed in 2011, staff felt it was also prudent to perform one given a strong alignment with these financial plans. The attached report are the financial plans meeting the requirements outlined as the province, outlined as legislation. Sorry. All of these documents utilize key inputs such as operating and infrastructure expenditures, population forecasts, and non-user rate revenues. In particular, for the rate study, key outcomes propose a 3% annual adjustment to the fixed and volumetric rates, Over the planning horizon, this achieves a 65% cost recovery of the annual requirement of the draft 2025 asset management plan replacement costs. It is anticipated that the continuance of these adjustments outside the planning horizon will continue to bridge this gap with regards to the annual infrastructure-related costs for the water and wastewater utilities. Lastly, it's important to note that these documents presented tonight represent the best information at this time and are utilized to support financial planning. Changes in key inputs could influence the rates required to be recovered from the end users, such as requirements identified in the forthcoming master servicing plan, changes in population forecasts, etc. So staff will utilize the rate study as a guiding document during the annual budget process when it looks to propose any changes to its utility rates. Thank you, and staff and the consultant are here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Romani. Colleagues, any questions or first comments at this point? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution before me as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the water and wastewater financial plans, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth endorses the water and rate study, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth indicates that the drinking water systems are financially viable. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion and debate? It's a good news story, I think, generally speaking. Let's have the vote. And that is carried. We like water. All right, let's move then to reports from the Development and Protective Services Department under item 9.2 of our agenda. Mr. Mirabella, thanks for coming up again. We appreciate your time. As item 9.2.1, Council is invited to forward recommendation to approve with a collection of conditions to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its delegated authority related to an application requesting consent to sever lands in the Elma Ward of the municipality of North Perth, owned by DeHaan Veterinary Professional Corporation at 5967 Perth Line 72. County of Perth student planner Arlene Sewer, who works on North Perth files with the team there, is with us tonight for her first time to provide an overview and recommendation. Welcome, Planner Sewer.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Just to reintroduce myself, my name's Harleen, and I am a summer student planner with Perth County. I do have a short presentation for you tonight about consent application B30-2024. It was submitted to the municipality by Simon Cullington on behalf of DeHaan Veterinary Professional Corporation. And the subject lands are described as part lot 16, concession 10 Elma Ward in the municipality of North Perth, also known as 5967 Perth Line 72. The application proposes to create a residential lot from the surrounding agricultural lands. The proposed separate lot, as outlined in yellow, is approximately 0.43 hectares and has a lot frontage of 47.6 meters. It contains a single detached dwelling, a good detached garage, and also 2 frame sheds. The proposed retained lot, as outlined in red, is approximately 24.68 hectares and has a lot frontage of approximately 150 meters on Perth Line 72, and approximately 250 meters of lot frontage on Road 164. It contains a shipping container. The application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, as the proposed sever lot is consistent with the existing grouping of non-related farm development in the surrounding settlement area, and the proposed retained lot will remain agricultural in nature. In regards to the official plan, the proposed severed lot is predominantly designated hamlet with an approximately 300 square meter portion to the southeast designated as agricultural. The agricultural designation intends to protect and preserve prime agricultural lands and prevent the breakup of farm holdings into smaller and prevent the breakup of farms into smaller holdings for non-farm use. The application, as proposed, does not fragment farms into smaller holdings, as the majority of the severed lot, or approximately 93%, is designated hamlet. Um, and as required by the official plan, the size and depth of the retained lot is consistent and appropriate, while as the proposed retained lot is undersized. The zoning bylaw does allow for undersized lots for the proposed use. So, in regards to zoning, the proposed severed lot is predominantly zoned hamlet village residential, with the aforementioned 300 square meter portion to the southeast designated or zoned agricultural. As a condition of zoning, staff recommend that the proposed severed lot be rezoned to entirely hamlet village residential. And the proposed retained lot is currently zoned predominantly agricultural and natural resource too, with an approximately 500 square foot portion to the rear of the severed lot zoned hamlet village agricultural. As a condition of consent, staff recommend that the proposed retained lot be rezoned from hamlet village residential and agricultural to special agricultural zone A-62 to prohibit any new permanent residential developments or dwellings, and then the natural resource / environment 2 zone will not be impacted. The North Point zoning bylaw requires that accessory buildings in residential zones be at least 1.2 meters from the rear lot line. However, the garage on the proposed severed lot is 0.91 meters from the rear lot line, and staff have proposed a slight modification that extends the depth of the proposed severed lot from 95.3 meters to approximately 95.6 meters to ensure the garage complies with the zoning bylaw. Aside from such, the proposal complies with all other zoning provisions. And then here are just some pictures of both the severed lot as well as the retained lot. A notice of application was provided, and we did receive one comment from a member of the public stating, or requesting rather, that the proposed severed lot be designated agricultural and that no new residential dwellings be permitted on the proposed residential lot, proposed retained lot. And then, as a condition of consent, staff recommended that no permanent residential dwellings be permitted on the proposed retained lot through a rezoning. Overall, the application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and it conforms with the law creation requirements of the official plan, subject to the conditions of consent being fulfilled. And planning staff do recommend supporting the application at this time, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sewer. Colleagues, questions or first comments? Councillor Rothman.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thanks very much for your presentation on North Perth Council. The question I have is with respect to the proposed severed land and as to whether or not the applicant wanted to build a new septic system and abandon the existing system. Is that because of the interpretation of where the hamlet designation is, or is there another reason for that? So I'm just wondering if that sewage system is in fact functioning and doing well, why would we abandon it for the sake of another, I'll say 15 meters? Thank you.
I believe it's like that to ensure that if the two or once the two lots go under separate ownership, that the septic system would be like easily accessible and by like the owners of like the the severed lot rather than doing an easement. I don't,
If I may just, so my understanding of what you're saying is that the applicant wants to have as much agricultural land left for the agricultural parcel, is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor Kaysberg, members of council. Not to overstep here at all, Harleen did a great job of putting this together. And just for council's information, she's been working diligently behind the scenes to do a lot of comprehensive work for the future North housekeeping amendment that would be coming forward for the zoning. Just for council's information, this was a request of the planning department. There was an outline of the approximate septic location. I believe it's a kind of an approximation. There's not really a confirmed functionality, etc. of it. So staff did request that everything be consolidated on one lot as a consideration, and we have discussed that with the applicant and owner, and they were satisfied with that condition request.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else with questions or first comments? Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, through your mayor. With the zoning on the retained portion, then, is there a possibility of building a residence on the retained?
Through the mayor, as staff have currently recommended, there is a condition that the retained lot be zoned to special agricultural A-62, which will prevent the construction of any new permanent residential dwellings. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to be sure.
Thanks. I assume that various provincial provisions for additional residential units could apply to the severed lot here.
Through the mayor, yes, ARU could apply here. It would be based on the septic criteria, so that would be a limiting factor there, absolutely. But they could look at additional ARU units for this as well too at the HVR zone only. So,
thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments before we consider the resolution? I'm not seeing any, so let's have the resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth advises the Land Division Committee or its delegated authority that the municipality supports application file B30-24 as modified by staff submitted by Dahan Veterinary Professional Corporation for lands described as Part Lot 16, Concession 10, Elma Ward in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 5967 Perth Line 72, subject to the following conditions. I won't read those because they are a matter of public record, but there are 6 North Perth conditions and 3 additional conditions recommended to the county that are part of this resolution. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Johnston, seconded by Councillor Anstad. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next, item 9.2.2. Council is invited to forward a recommendation to approve with a collection of conditions to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its delegated authority related to an application requesting consent to sever lands in the Elma Ward of the municipality of North Perth owned by parties Slois at 7877 Perth Road, not Perth Road. 164, I got it. County of Perth planner Nathan Garland, who works on North Perth files, who talked about this one sheet earlier, or at least related, is with us to provide an overview and the recommendation justification. Mr. Garland, you're back.
thank you very much, members of North Perth, Mayor Kaysberg, and members of the North Perth Council. This may be something like a repeat of a presentation. However, this deals with the consent application that is in front of you. This is for consent B2824 on behalf of Francis Angelica Sluice. The applicant, the agent is Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Scott Patterson and has provided information also. And as noted, this is just for this is the consent portion of Listowel Greenhouses, just south of Listowel on Road 164. So as outlined previously, this is now for the consent. So the severed portion requested is approximately 2.238 hectares with a retained at 35.5 hectares. And just circling back to some of the questions raised by Councillor Rothwell previously, a portion of that severed portion will go directly through the worked area. So there will be a portion of the, not worked area, the storage area. So a portion will be retained with the farmland, as well as a portion will go with the greenhouses. So that storage area at the back is going to be split in half approximately. There's just an outline of the subject request. The subject severance is outlined in yellow, with the retained land portion being the agricultural and the natural environment lands outlined in red. As mentioned previously, no comments or concerns have been provided as part of the consent application either. Comments were provided by Blue Water Recycling and Hydro One, stating it had no concerns. Septic is to remain private, so there will be there is just a main requirement for private septic and water. And then, as noted previously, a portion of the lands will be included in the employment lands in the draft Perth County official plan. These are the same photos as shown previously, just the location of the greenhouse operation as it exists today. So just the severance is to recognize that and just maintain it as such, so not a lot of additional lands. It really is just to maintain the existing greenhouse operation and remove it from the farm person. Just the same pictures also. As mentioned previously, there is a rezoning application required as part of that. That will be returning to council after the 20 days that has the appeal period, or should council consider or support this application. So if this application is supported, the subject or the additional zoning bylaw report will return to council probably in the next month and a half or so for council's consideration. Should council choose to adopt it. As mentioned also, the subject severance is supported with the master guidelines, the Perth County official plan, and as noted also, the MDS setback there does not encroach or infringe on any of the greenhouse operations. And as noted previously, staff are supportive of the consent application. There are conditions listed 1 through 7, and I'm happy to address or answer any questions the council may have at this time.
All right, colleagues, questions or first comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution before us for our consideration as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth recommends that the Perth County Land Division Committee or its designate approve consent application file B28-24, and that North Perth Council forwards the conditions listed in the staff report dated August 26, 2024, to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate for consent application file B28-24, affecting the property legally described as Lot 16, Concession 2, Elma Ward, in the Municipality of North Perth, 7877 Road 164. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And now we have one more of these. Also a consent to sever. This is, I think, heard earlier tonight a little bit. But let's go through this one. As item 9.2.3, Council is invited forward recommendation to approve with a collection of conditions to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its delegated authority related to an application requesting consent to sever lands in Listowel and Elma wards of the municipality of North Perth, owned by Connie Evangelo Bray at 6175 line 86. County of Perth planner Nathan Garland is with us one more time. It's a three-peat.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kasenberg and members of North Perth Council. This is my last presentation for tonight. So I'm here to introduce the consent application B2424 on behalf of Connie and Angel Ray and the Trident Group, and Ms. Carolyn Baker has previously introduced this application to North Perth Council. As noted, the application request for severance is located on the west side of Listowel there along Highway 86. Previously discussed, so the request for the severed lands is approximately 31.25 hectares. That's the proposed future residential and commercial subdivision lands, as well as the natural environment block that's located there as well too. So that is the requested area to be severed off, which has previously been approved through the Listowel and Perth County official plan. The requested retained lot contains the house and outbuildings as well as a natural environment block as well too. It is approximately 5.22 hectares, which is a little bit larger than a surplus farm severance and agricultural block, or smaller than agricultural block, as previously noted. Just for council's consideration, Ms. Baker just did remind and provide some additional comments previously here that there is for future connections for the plan of subdivisions should this ever move towards residential. So there is some additional connection blocks included in the plan of subdivision as submitted for future connections to this area. There's the outline of the report photo shown in color there. So the requested severed lands is the yellow area as outlined, a little bit backwards than what we normally see. However, that is the area that's been considered or adopted in the Perth County official plan for the residential and commercial area. The retained block is that agricultural piece that is proposed to be a special agricultural zone, and it is being considered as part of ZBA 6 2024. Staff would be looking at restricting any kind of agricultural uses as well as any kind of restrictions on the subject lands at a future date, and that would be brought back to council at a future time. No concerns or comments have been expressed by the general public. There was a number of comments that were brought in. They were all actually related to the plan of subdivisions, so we anticipate some of those comments coming back as part of the zoning bylaw amendment that would be followed up at a future date. But no comments or concerns were expressed as it relates to the severed parcel. The Blue Iris Lincoln did provide some comments, just stating that they'd be reviewing the plan of subdivision and providing comments at a future date. Servicing is to remain private on the agricultural piece only. The future residential and commercial lands would be joined and connected to the listable servicing, so they would be provided with full municipal services in that severed parcel. And then previously, an official plan amendment was completed for both the Perth County official plan and the listable official plan to include those areas within. Just a couple of photos. One's actually a Google Street View image that does a nice job of just outlining the area there. So the area to the left there is considered for the commercial block. There is an easement requested as well too, just to maintain that existing driveway in place until such time as a future road connection would take place in there. So there's not additional punching accesses to Highway 86 or anything to that effect. And then the aerial photo to the bottom there, that's just a picture from 86 as it is today or a couple days ago. As noted, there is a rezoning requirement should council consider supporting this application. There has been 2 zoning bylaw amendment applications submitted. One is strictly for the agricultural piece. The other is for the subdivision lands. Staff felt it prudent in discussion with the applicant and agent that they split them up so that they're not joined together. As there's a lot of concerns typically around the subdivision. That seemed to be where primarily most of the comments were. That way, these 2 applications could move forward separately and they wouldn't be joined. There is an easement being proposed as part of the existing driveway access through there. It does conform to the PPS as it is a settlement area now, so that's a separate area. The PPS does allow for severances of agricultural blocks in the settlement areas. As previously noted, it was adopted through the OPA 216 for Perth County and then the listable OPA 36. As stated, staff are supportive of the application. We're happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garland. I won't say I'm completely understanding this one. Can you just help me? I'll have one question. Right now, you showed a laneway in the property. It looks like it's intended to be in the severed parcel for the subdivision.
Correct. In response to your question, Mr. Mayor, that is portion in the severed area, but that is where the easement location will be. So there will be the frontage requirement. That's in more or less the natural environment block. That's very close to the natural environment block. So there's no proposed entrances there. That's just to maintain frontage on the subject lands because there is a consideration in the official plan that doesn't allow a parcel to be created without any kind of frontage. So we have asked for that to be considered.
So this lane is going to become the access to the house, even though it's on adjacent property, if we execute this effort. Am I right?
The easement would allow for access into the house until such time as a road would be constructed there to provide the other access to the house. So this would be the access as it is today until such time as it's no longer required.
Okay, but that road also will, or that driveway will also provide access to the adjacent subdivision plan. Is that right?
Eventually, full service road will be built in, but as of right now, that road will only provide service or easement to the owners of the Braes on that property or the owners of that.
Okay, so people won't be accessing the new subdivision.
They will not be allowed. That won't be part of the phasing. They'll have to address that through the phasing operation of the subdivision design.
Okay, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Nathan, for the report. Could you just clarify for me? I'm looking at page 228 of our agenda package, and this is the severance sketch by Grid Engineering. And on there, it has parcel 1 lands to be severed, which is the majority of the planned subdivision. And then it says parcel 2 to be severed, which is the woodlot, and then the lands to be retained are the Bray property, which we'll talk about in a minute. But are there, how is the woodlot going to be severed separately, and who's going to own it?
Through the mayor, in response to Councillor Rothwell's question, there is some discussion with the municipality in the long term to take ownership of that block. So it is the intent, I believe, of the municipality to take ownership of that block, and they would be done through municipal powers to, ideally, or through the subdivision plan of subdivision to retain that for the long-term management and protection.
So just further then, would that be as separate to or in addition to the 5% land dedication for parks, or is this a separate piece?
That would be a separate piece.
All right. And further, if I may, Mayor Todd, I am concerned about the size of the parcel for the retained, and here's an issue that didn't come forward when we were dealing with the Plaza subdivision, is that now we have seen the mapping of the new draft official plan, and all of these lands are to be within the serviced urban area. And if in fact that was in place today, I am fairly confident we would not be considering this an undersized agricultural parcel. We would in fact be looking at as a parcel that would be deemed to be ready for residential development at some point. And I'm not forcing the issue here. I'm simply saying that to put this in an agricultural zone and to have this considered to be an agricultural parcel is not necessarily in the long-term best interest of North Perth, if in fact our requirements are valid, which I believe they are, in terms of our need for additional units. So I would really like us to have this conversation around this council table as to whether or not it's appropriate to have the severed parcel of 10.5 acres, more or less, to be considered undersized for a parcel. Thank you.
Through your worship, in response to Councillor Rothwell's question, and just for council's discussion, part of the challenge was this parcel was left in the agricultural destination in the official plan. So staff's recommendation is typically just to maintain that as such in the agricultural zone. We can look at special zones, so staff are considering, let's say, limitations to nutrient management units, limiting agricultural livestock, things like that that might impact the surrounding settlement areas as part of the zoning. So a special agricultural zone, it could be also addressed as part of the future zoning bylaw revisions to the entire area. It does limit that. They would be welcome to apply for a future zoning bylaw amendment once it's included within the listed settlement area or the purpose service urban area, or a future rezoning or consideration to have more intensity than, say, just a single family or a single family with an ARU. So that is where staff's brought forward or considering the agricultural amendment at this time. So definitely some restrictions there on the agricultural uses to limit that and recognize that it is more of an urban geographically functioning area than it is an agricultural setting, for sure.
Go ahead.
I've done my two. If there's any other questions, but if I do have another question.
Yeah, colleagues, anyone else have questions before Councillor Rothwell takes another whack at this?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Todd, I'm just wondering about the benefit of what's called a future development zone. Looking forward in terms of the new county official plan, the future development zone would be a zone where we intend to see development at some point. It does not give any additional agriculture use at all. It allows existing uses and places whatever limits on it. I would be much more comfortable with that as opposed to calling this an agricultural zone, because I do note, and if council hasn't seen this, the proposed mapping of the new official plan actually goes further west of this property. It includes the 6 or 8, I think it's 6 residential lots on the south side of Perth Line 86 as well. So in fact, we'd be creating an island, if you will, if we want to consider this to be an agricultural use. So I am concerned about that. And I know this is on the severance, but I just want to make sure that we have this hammered out now in terms of what we're really considering this to be. And in my view, although under our current official plan, it's in the agriculture designation because that's the way the application came forward to us through this developer and with the owner with their intent. But long term, what the county official plan is that it's not agriculture, it's in fact serviced urban area. Thank you.
Through the mayor, staff appreciate the comments, and we're happy to take that back to the applicant and agent, and senior staff will discuss that option.
I admit to being a little bit nervous, as you've already heard about this, and you know I mean, there's a part of my brain that says that this is sort of another method to getting a very large country estate lot, and I'm kind of uncomfortable with that. Like, maybe that's not the way to look at it, and I can certainly be convinced through the comments that have been made that maybe that's not the way to look at it. But there's an awful lot of property attached to what looks more like, to me, a severance of a property. I know that's not exactly the way you've gone, but like it just seems that there's massive amounts of land there that if the owner of that property decided they were not going to develop and just sort of enjoy that as a little hobby place with lots of space and stuff, it seems like it's kind of an odd run around the general principle of severances that Perth County has tried to maintain. Now, maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Maybe I'm certainly no planning expert, but it does leave me nervous that it's so large, and that, as Councillor Rothwell said, if there's contiguity next to it with other urban development, urban type development, residential development, this is going to be sort of a weird lot in the midst of a place, and it still remains at the discretion of the owner whether or not to actually apply or make changes. From what I'm understanding, they could sell this land for another 30 years, for all I know. So I'm a little anxious about this one. I'm not quite sure that we've got this figured out. I'm sure Councillor Rothman is concerned about the contiguity, and it does seem like an awfully large parcel, inconsistent with Perth County dogma, frankly, around these kinds of severances. Councillor Rothman.
Thanks, Todd, and I share the concern. It is not unusual when we have plans of subdivision do come within for urban development that the current owner wishes to retain the existing lots or an existing lot, including the existing dwelling. And we can drive in all kinds of communities around us to see that where it's happened over time. I will say that in my experience, it's very, very unusual that we're going to see something of this size that would be happening. It would be much more likely that we would see that existing beautiful red two-story red brick house and the shed and so on, and it would still probably be somewhere in the order of acre and a half or 2 acres as part of that, as opposed to 10 and a half. But that's the issue that we have before us. And as I say, I've expressed my concern here on this about how it's there. It was one of the conditions of the draft plan of subdivision, but what's come before us now is that the county official plan draft wasn't to the state it is now when we were dealing with this. So it would have been nice if it did, but it wasn't. So we're playing a bit of catch up in my view.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this at this point? Okay, I have a resolution that's been recommended to us for our consideration. As follows: that the county, the municipality of North Perth recommends that the Perth County Land Division Committee or its designated approved consent application file B24-24, and that the North Perth Council forwards the conditions listed in the staff report dated August 26, 2024 to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate for consent file B24-24 affecting the property legally described as Concession 1, Part Lot 27 and Part Lot 28, Westwell Elma Ward in the municipality of North Perth, 6175. Is it Perth line 86 or line 86? We are going with Perth line 86 this time. I'm trying to follow the bouncing ball, Councillor Rothman. I'm not sure I'm doing a good job. All right, so Perth line 86. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Nordum, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kellum. Thank you. Discussion or debate? I'm not seeing any, so let's have the vote. That is carried 4-3. Okay. Thank you, Pointer Garland, for your work tonight. Lots on the table. I think this is a good time to declare a 5-minute bio break. So let's come back at 8:50, and we'll resume council at that point. We're in recess. Okay, I call us back to order after a recess. Next up is item 9.3, reports from the Facilities Department. Results of staff adjudication of a request for tender are before us in item 9.3.1. Colleagues, the report in your package proposes award of the contract for winter maintenance of various North Perth facilities to Fletcher's Landscaping of Listowel, Ontario, for quoted costs excluding HST. Are there any questions for staff on this one? We have Mr. Newell here. If anyone wants to ask questions, you're welcome to. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Jeff, for being here. So, my understanding is that the 5 new locations that would be part of this is that existing staff were currently doing those clearing activities and so on. So, by entering into this contract, staff will be able to allocate their time to other matters that are before them as opposed to clearing snow and sanding and so on. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor, to Councillor Rothwell. One was a former contract that we did have down in Elmalogan with the fire hall. With the price of insurance these days, it's made it difficult for providers to get insurance. And so that was one that we had already requested Fletcher's, who was our current provider, to look after that, but it wasn't written into the contract, so we have added that. And then also firefighters previously were looking after the fire halls themselves, but we thought it would be best to make sure that we are guaranteed clean whenever there's a need for a fire call.
No, I think that's appropriate. Thanks very much.
Colleagues, anyone else have questions or first comments? Councillor Gordon.
Thanks, and to you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Councillor Rothwell already asked a question, but is that the same idea for the EMCC as well? Like, we're giving that up to Fletcher's instead of doing it ourselves?
The EMCC, if I'm not mistaken, is done by an outside contractor under another tender. And I'm just going to ask Lyndon if that's true. Lyndon, is that EMCC? Was that Hannah Hamilton? Yeah, I think that's under the next tender award that Lyndon is going to look after in his presentation. Mm-hmm. That's right, correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, I have a resolution for our consideration as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for tender NP-030-24T winter maintenance for various municipal facilities contract to Fletcher's Landscaping Inc. of Listowel, Ontario for quoted cost call by locations with firm pricing for an initial 3-year contract term from 2024 to 2027. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Nordham. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Thank you, Mr. Newell. And that is carried. Let's move to item 9.4, reports from the Operations Department. As item 9.4.1, Council is asked to award a tender for resurfacing on Highway 23 Mitchell Road to vendor Moorfield Excavating of Harriston, Ontario. The award amount is $1,373,892.60, excluding taxes. I see Mr. Couch is there. I've noticed the province and our sign is up already for it. So let's talk about it. Tell us about this one.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kissenberg, members of council. We put the sign up designating that it's a funded project through the province and the federal government. We're anticipating a start in September to early October. Only a portion of the work will happen this year. We haven't had our first meeting with the contractor, but at this point there are some storm sewers to go in along the east side, along the mall side of that corridor from Kincaid to Barnett, along with the sidewalk and curb line, the new asphalt coming next summer. But the larger part of the job that has been added is a sanitary crossing at Barnett, coming from the new subdivisions across the road. An enlargement of the sanitary is also built into the project. So that's the project. The funded portion is the resurfacing of the road, and we're expecting just over $1 million from the province, depending on what we spend, as a commitment for curb line and for asphalt work that's going to happen along the highway.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Couch. Questions or first comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, through you. Thanks, Lennon, for the comments. So my understanding, just in terms of the actual Mitchell Road South, so this is going south from the roundabout through to where that our connecting link stops, which is basically the bridge. Is that correct on Mitchell Road South? Like it's that whole portion? Is that correct?
It's the portion from Kincaid south to the connecting lake end, which is right at the bridge. So Kincaid to the bridge.
Okay, good. Thank you.
This could be quite disruptive. Do you want to talk to us about what we should expect and what the community might expect on this one?
Thank you. Because of the deeper dig at the sanitary sewer right at Barnett, we're expecting a reduction in traffic to single lane with traffic signals, temporary traffic signals, through a short portion of the contract. And that will be the most disruptive moments, but it's because it's such a deep dig. They will need to retain some roadway, and it'll be a single lane expected at that time. If we could go double lanes, we'll find out through the contractor, but right now there will be traffic signals and delays. We're going to advertise that through the website and socials, as well as on the site itself for users of the corridor. But it's a necessary portion of the work. We're able to keep the road open, though.
And did you want to comment? I'm not sure I'm familiar with this. So, will there be some sidewalk put in on one or other side of the highway?
Yeah, as part of this work, there will be sidewalk through the mall frontages. So it's going to extend from Barnett to Kincaid along the curb line. We're placing a boulevard in that area as well. So if you're walking along the frontage of the mall now, you'll have a sidewalk along that area. It's going to be on top of a new storm sewer that's going to convey water better than that ditch line does today.
Okay, thank you. I've certainly had a number of people in the community ask for that, so it's exciting to hear that evolve. All right. Any other questions or comments from council before we consider the resolution? All right, seeing none, the resolution is follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for tender NP-031-24T Mitchell Road Highway 23 resurfacing and construction to vendor Moorfield Excavating Inc. of Harrison, Ontario in the amount of $1,373,892.60, excluding HST. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordham, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Couch, on that one. Let's turn next to the 9.4.2. Get to my notes here. Council is asked to award a tender for snow clearing to two vendors, Hannah and Hamilton and Dunnigan's Haulage, with hourly rates by vehicle type and a firm platform for our initial 3-year contract term. Colleagues, any questions about that one before we consider it? Mr. Couch is standing there waiting for questions, anxious to answer our questions. And there are none, so Mr. Couch gets off easy tonight. As follows, that the Council of Municipality of North Perth awards request for tender NP-029-24T snow clearing for various municipal streets and parking lots to contract to Hannah and Hamilton Construction, Listowel, Ontario for Area A for $205 per hour for loader and $125 per hour for triaxle. And Dunnigan's Haulage 20210 Limited, Listowel, Ontario for areas B and C for $205 an hour for loader and $125 per hour for triaxle, with firm pricing for an initial 3-year contract term from 2024 to 2027. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Anstead. Thank you. Questions, comments, debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mr. Todd. Sorry I didn't get this early enough. Through you, Lyndon, the on the schedule to the regarding locations, on Area A, we only mentioned P3, 5, 6, and 7, and I see that we have a 4, 8, and 9 as well. Are they not part of this contract. They're just listed on the schedule, but we haven't included them, or am I missing something?
No, they're under a separate work.
Okay.
For those lots. We've tried to consolidate things with the facility lots versus road-related parking lots, which are more public, but they are represented and all lots will be cleared.
Okay, fair enough. I'm happy then.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I not see any other questions or comments. It's duly moved and seconded. Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next, we turn to item 9.5, one item from the Strategic Initiatives Department. In item 9.5.1, we are seeing clear staff hustle. Thank you, hustle. To get back on our table a framework for policy and implementation related to Council's Attainable Housing Community Improvement Plan, which was passed at our last Council meeting. Council is asked to adopt a policy so that the municipality may begin to operationalize the plan and our intent. Ms. McLean's been really busy, I can tell you that. She supported a certain amount of the work that went into AMO preparations for myself and CAO Snell, and somehow she's pulled together a policy too, which is pretty remarkable. So kudos, first of all. Ms. McLean, it's up to you to explain this one to us.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, and good evening, Council. So, yes, tonight staff have brought back a draft 2024 CIP implementation policy for Council's review and consideration. So, this policy will guide staff, more specifically the CIP administrator and the CIP implementation committee, in implementing and managing the financial incentive programs of the CIP for the remainder of 2024. Some key highlights from the policy, which is attached to the report, include appointing the manager of strategic initiatives as the CIP administrator, as well as outlining the competition of the CIP implementation committee, recommending implementation of 3 of the CIP incentive programs for 2024. So that is the planning and building permit fee grant, the additional residential dwelling unit grant, and the tax increment equivalency grant, or the TEAG as we often refer to it. Also, confirmation of the 2024 CIP budget, which is $75,000. A recommended application intake period of August 28th to December the 2nd, with applications evaluated on a first come, first served basis. Delegated authority of application approval to the CIP implementation committee, except for applications that do include the TEAG program. Those would come to council for their review and consideration. Lastly, the policy does include the eligible, affordable, and attainable rental rates that would be considered for the 2024 year. These rates would be reviewed on an annual basis, as well as with any changes to the definitions of affordable and attainable by upper levels of government. So overall, it's intended that this policy would be updated on an annual basis for the 10-year period of the CIP, and we feel that our experience in implementing the programs over the next, 3 months will allow us to do some lessons learned and update the policy for 2025. And lastly, funding for the CIP incentive programs in the future, as well as the 2025 year, will be discussed through the 2025 budget process. So at this time, I can answer any questions council may have.
Thanks, Ms. McLean. Colleagues, questions, first comments on this? All right, I have a resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth adopts Policy 5-2024, North Perth Attainable Housing Community Improvement Plan 2024 Implementation Policy, moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Anstead. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? I do want to advise Council that at the AMO meeting, we did have the opportunity to meet with the Associate Minister of Housing and pitch some concepts related to CIP. This CIP and other municipalities are doing similar work. The associate minister was quite hospitable and asked reasonable questions and was smiling as we left. So that could either be a very positive thing or perhaps a profoundly negative thing. But it was a useful delegation, and he and his team, and he had several of the senior housing bureaucrats at the table. Were kindly towards us at the occasion. So I did want to let council know that we've made a pitch to the province for them to fund CIPs for attainable and affordable housing. All right. Any further comments, discussion, debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next up is item 10. Thank you, Ms. McLean, as always. Item 10, councillors, are there any reports that you would like to ask of staff or of our committees? Anyone with report requests? Not seeing any tonight. That brings us to item 11 on our agenda. We've received one item of correspondence. Beyond that, already shared in the consent agenda for council's disposition. I'm going to step out of the chair here and yield to Deputy Mayor Kellum for this matter. Deputy Mayor Kellum is ready.
Yes, please note that Mayor Kiesenberg has declared candidates. Moving on to item 11 on our agenda. Council, at this point, we have a request for a facility use, namely parking lot stalls and Character Square for the United Way campaign kickoff in North Perth has been received. We've also been asked to provide traffic barricades from our stock to support keeping cars away from the small vendor market that has been proposed. And I do have a resolution that reads as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from the United Way Perth Huron as follows. Use of 14 parking stalls in a municipal parking lot between TD Bank and Ward and Up the Grove, beginning on the evening of September 12th until 4 p.m. on September 13th. The use of Character Square from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on September 13th, as well delivery and pickup by North Perth staff on sufficient traffic barricades to block off 14 parking stalls on the south side and of the aforementioned parking lot. Madam Mover, please. By Councillor Johnson, second by Councillor Nordham. Questions or comments? Seeing none, let's have that vote. I am in favor. And that is carried.
All right. Thanks to Deputy Mayor Callum for conducting that business. At this point, we turn to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight, we have for consideration a total of 5 bylaws. The enabling resolution outlines each bylaw, their number, and their purpose. Before I read the resolution for passing these bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or more for a more fulsome individual consideration? Not seeing any indication to that end, so let's have the omnibus resolution here as follows. That bylaw 73-2024 being a bylaw to provide for drainage work in the municipality of North Perth be read a first and second time and be provisionally adopted. And that the following bylaws are hereby passed. 52-2024 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 78-2019. 53-2024 being a bylaw to establish development charges for the Northeast Master Plan area. 74-2024 being a bylaw to establish development charges for the municipality of North Perth. And 75-2024 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 6-ZB-1999 is amended. Can I call for a mover of that? Deputy Mayor Kellum, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I just want to confirm item 12.1 that it's for bylaw 73-2024. It's just first and second reading. We're not adopting that, correct?
This is for the drainage item. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's the first and second reading with provisional. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, duly moved and seconded. Let's have the vote. Lots of papers here. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda. Do any councillors wish leave to give notice of motion this evening? I'm not seeing any expression of that. Let's move to item 14 on our agenda. For item 14, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth? And if we have anyone connected online, we don't. Okay, so it's within this room. Folks, anyone with happy announcements? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'm going to share though because council asked me to. Some feedback from AMO on the subject of primary health care in communities. As council may recall, I was asked to sit on a panel of 4 speakers at that occasion in Ottawa on August 19th. And I was involved in providing an overview of our community, actually, which was kind of exciting, and also answering questions about the matter of what municipalities might do to support efforts to improve primary health care in their communities. While it is certainly clear that this quality and standards in primary care are the purview of the provincial government, which is largely responsible also for funding service delivery, municipalities have found themselves drawn into some of the challenges in the system, particularly the lack of availability of family physicians, nurse practitioners, and other allied healthcare professionals. With the note that I am sharing what I perceived and heard in the panel discussion, and because I was occasionally busy myself responding to questions and thoughts of the other panelists and the audience, here is what I'm going to share about what was learned from the experience. One, we need provincial support for primary care and mental health and addictions services so that physicians, nurse practitioners, and their teammates and community service providers harmoniously can meet community needs. That word harmonious is important here. There is movement, and rightly so, to greater collaboration and a wide net approach in healthcare, and this needs to be honored and nourished by the province of Ontario. We need a single and coherent, provincially supported and endorsed marketing strategy to support the work of Ontario's municipalities as they market themselves to healthcare practitioners as a place to live and be. Ontario is just not showing up in that arena, and other provinces seem to have a coherent strategy and resources funded by the provincial governments, not by municipal governments like we're doing here in Ontario. We need a tailored rural and northern health strategy. That became quite clear. We need better evidence for what works and what doesn't work in the recruitment effort for these kinds of healthcare professionals. For example, there is a growing reluctance based on some evidence that recruitment dollar incentives are not going to retain healthcare professionals, and these activities risk pitting communities against each other. In fact, Mayor Shoemaker of Sault Ste. Marie, which is a community seriously stressed by physician recruitment right now, lots of retirements there, has actually called on the province to legislate or regulate against allowing municipalities to enter the doctor incentive game. This is becoming a dangerous arms race with no likely winners, which in our case, if we were to play, would probably add conservatively to our tax burden over the next 5 years a $1.25 million hit. So I want you to appreciate that. And so, if we want to get in on that game, and it's an ugly game, everyone else is trying to do it too, we're going to find ourselves in an ever ratcheting up arms race. Interestingly enough, the doctor on the panel herself recommended against incentives. That was a fascinating revelation in the panel. We need an innovation fund from the province to support pilots and experiments in primary care service delivery that can rapidly succeed or fail fast. We must be open to possibilities that other healthcare professionals may become the deliverers of primary care for portions of our population and may need to renovate the payment system that Ontario currently has for healthcare professionals to allow that to happen appropriately. We need to relieve the administrative burden in the system, and that likely requires funding innovation. There are certainly external reports suggesting, and it has been confirmed locally as well, that doctors are spending a lot of time doing paperwork and administrative work. In fact, the local number that I heard was approximately 19 hours per week per doctor. That's a phenomenal amount of paperwork that needs to be relieved somehow, some way. And finally, there was some discussion of standards in primary care that evolved in a sort of democratic consensus kind of way called Our Care. It's a new standard, a relatively new standard, and it approaches building or rebuilding a healthcare system framework that, amongst its more powerful concepts, is the notion of decentralization to healthcare providing teams and personnel in neighborhoods at the neighborhood level. And you can read more about the AirCare standard, colleagues, if you're interested at ourcare.ca. Those are the key things that I walked away with from that panel. There were about 200 people, I think, in the room participating. Some great questions, some great ideas. I certainly had an offer for a video conversation with the mayor in Northern Ontario to talk about some of these issues. So certainly it was a very interesting experience to participate and learn from fellow panelists. And in fact, I do want to appreciate the work that was done by some of our important local stakeholders in the healthcare system to brief me properly so that I could be useful and productive in that presentation. They were very helpful, and I thank them for it. If anyone has a question, I would entertain that. Councillor Rothwell.
Mayor Todd, thank you. Thank you for representing our community and being at that table to share our experiences to date. And I think it's fantastic, and hopefully there'll be more than just talk in terms of great an audience of 200. I think the audience is far greater than that needs to hear the stories that were shared, I'm sure. And hopefully that news will come forward. I will share personally, last week I was at the Schulich School of Public Health at Western. Our daughter Anne finished up her Master's of Public Health there, and they had their displays and so on. And I did have the opportunity to talk to an older brother of one of Anne's team members, who's in his third year of residency and is interested in family medicine and specifically to rural healthcare. And so I took the opportunity, just like anyone else here would, to remind him where North Perth is and tell him in this case that it's fantastic wherever he goes, but to make sure that he knows that he's welcome to come and to talk about our program that we have through Western's program to have students come and spend time in a rural healthcare environment. And he's had some other experiences elsewhere. And perhaps over his next 3 years, he'll have the opportunity again. So I want to thank you, Mayor Todd, as well as Deputy Mayor and others directly involved, and CAO Snell directly involved in the issue of healthcare, and certainly the new committee that's been formed, and certainly all our local healthcare staff here locally. We need them all, and we need to look down the road to welcome more into the fold here to help take care of us all. Thank you.
Thanks. Interesting comments. The one piece that I didn't share that interested me, it sort of stood out, if you will, at the meeting, was that there was sort of a reveal that about 50% of family medicine intended doctors actually do not do the generalist stream. They either want to do family medicine anesthesia or family medicine hospital or family medicine obstetrics. And so they wind up not actually being able to provide their capacity. Their capacity is used in a different way and continues to sort of keep the problem of not having a family doctor in the system when you have that proportional diversion, if you will, from the generalist stream. So it's an interesting challenge because while we hear various reports about the intense and actual increases in med school seats, for example, if that trend continues and 50% of them are sort of being peeled off into family medicine specialties, we're not going to see the kind of improvement that we really need for all of us to have a family doctor. So it's an interesting challenge. Anyone else? Questions or comments? Okay, thank you. I thought I would report back to council on this and share what was learned. All right, that brings us to agenda item 15. We do have one item to be considered in a closed session of council. I'm going to read the resolution to that end to bring us there into closed session as follows. The council proceeds in camera at 9:21 p.m. to address matters pertaining to the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding Plan 165, lots 11 to 15, PT lots 16 and 17, South Main Street lot 15 and part lots 16 and 17 North Elma Street RP 44R 671 PT Part 1. What am I reading? It's just lots and lots of letters and numbers. All right, that's the resolution, actually. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Anston, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate on that? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. All right, we are going to move to closed session. I'll ask anyone who has not been invited to remain in the room for this to exit. We will close the doors. We are going to change the AV configuration so that we can is reconvened into open session after a closed session meeting. Regarding item 16 of our agenda, Council did discuss the matter identified in our enabling resolution for a closed session meeting of Council and did give staff direction pertaining to the matter that was considered. The essence of that direction will remain confidential at this time for the reasons stipulated in our enablement of closed session. I have declared pecuniary interest and noted my interest applies to item 17.1, so I'm going to call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to conduct the confirmatory item 17.1. Council, we've concluded the business for this evening, so it has come to what is called the confirmatory bylaw, and have a motion that reads as follows. That bylaw number 76-2024 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth is hereby passed. Moved by Councillor Anstead, second by Councillor Duncan. All those in favor, let's have a vote. That is carried. All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for service on two fronts tonight. So that brings us to the happy moment of our meeting, the opportunity to adjourn. To those who are watching, it's rather warm in here tonight, and so we're happy to adjourn for sure. Councillors, we've taken action and deliberated on the business that came before us. We have a motion to adjourn as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 9:47 p.m. to meet again for regular general council business on Monday, September, the date's not here, September 9th, thank you, September 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Okay, we'll have to update that resolution. Can I call for over? Councillor Rodham, Councillor Johnston is our seconder. It's not debatable, so let's have that vote. I'm in favor. Councillor Anstead records a manual in favor vote. And we have 7 votes accounted for. That is carried. Colleagues, our next regular council meeting is Monday, September 9th, 2024. Until that time, council is adjourned.